Agabus after all he's been through? And Agabus says, yeah, there's going to be some prison and some hardship and some suffering when you get to Jerusalem. Hardships are coming? Are you kidding me? I mean, is this news for Paul? Jesus himself had already told Paul all about it. Right? Acts chapter 9, when he was converted on the road to Damascus. Jesus said, I'm going to show him how much he will suffer for my name. And so now Agabus is saying there's going to be trouble, and Paul's saying, it's no newsflash to me. Look at Acts 21:12. After the prophecy of Agabus, I like the way it says this. Luke is the writer, and I love the way that he words this. Luke 21:12. It says, when we heard this being the prophecy of Agabus, when we heard this, we and the people pleaded with Paul not to go up to Jerusalem. I want to ask you, who are the we? We and the people said to Paul, don't go to Jerusalem. The we, who is it? Well, it's Luke. He's included in the we. He wrote the book of Acts. But also Acts 20 verse 4 lists 8 other guys that were part of Paul's team. And so that's the we. But he goes on to say, he says, we and the people. Who are the people that don't want him to go, that are begging with Paul not to go back to Jerusalem? Well, that would be Philip and the believers that are in Caesarea. None of them wanted Paul to go back to Jerusalem. Truth is, they didn't want to go back to Jerusalem because they were afraid of what would happen when they got there. Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad that the Apostle Paul did not make decisions by voting? If they'd taken a vote, none of the Roman Empire would ever have been evangelized because none of it was safe. None of it was easy to reach. Danger everywhere. They couldn't even find a place that could even be remotely called reasonably risky. You remember Paul's itinerary again? I just love this, just to put it in real short phrases. As you go through the book of Acts, he was chased out of Antioch and Iconium. He was stoned at Lystra, stripped, flogged, and imprisoned in Philippi, chased by a mob of angry Jews in Thessalonica. He was chased all the way to Berea. Physically abused and dragged into court in Corinth. Survived another riot in Ephesus, plotted against in Syria. And when he finally did get to Jerusalem after this prophecy of Agabus, it turned out just as Agabus had said, and Paul was flogged again, smuggled out of Jerusalem. And then after this story, if you keep reading on into the book of Acts, he's later shipwrecked in the Adriatic Sea. He swims ashore on the island of Malta. He was caught in a hurricane-force wind along the shore of Crete. And then it says, finally, you get to the end of Acts, and he makes it to Rome, where he eventually had his head chopped off. This is Paul's life. And I don't think he ever made it to Spain. So what would we have done? I mean, it's a great story, but I don't want to just charge ahead. What would we have done if we were there as a part of Paul's team and we heard that prophecy from Agabus about not going because there's danger ahead? What would we have done? Well, what do we do? Forget about then. What do we do now? What do we do when we hear maybe that there are hostile Muslims in Yemen? Or Iran? Or Morocco? How do we respond now when we hear the challenge to go to places like that? What do we do? Is our response, I don't want to go there? Is that what we say? Like John Patton, when he wanted to go to New Hebrides, the guy stood up and said, you know, the cannibals will eat you there, sir. Don't go there. There's cannibals. But we're no different today. We say we can't go there. There's terrorists there. There's drug cartels there. Islamic rascals over there. Is that what we say when we hear about the hard places where the gospel has never gone? So it's easy to criticize Paul's friends, but let's not be like them. And I love this again. It says that they were breaking Paul's heart. Not because they were telling him about coming persecutions. That's not what broke Paul's heart. What broke Paul's heart is that they were trying to talk him out of going on his mission for Christ and the gospel. That's what broke his heart. But it says Paul would not be dissuaded. Similar thing when Peter tried to save Jesus from Jerusalem. Remember that? Mark 8 is one of the places. Jesus had just told his disciples the good news. They didn't realize that it was good news the way Jesus packaged it. Jesus said, I must go to Jerusalem. I must suffer many things. I must be rejected by elders and priests. I must be killed, and after 3 days I will be raised again. And Peter wouldn't hear of it. No, Lord. That'll never happen to you, Jesus. Surely there's another way, Jesus. Another way to get around Jerusalem. No, Peter. There's no other way. And Jesus rebuked him. He rebuked that statement because this is the way Satan thinks.